God is very good. When I ignored him, was completely independent, he loved me and he was searching for me. My name is Andrew Timms. I currently pastor a church in Bournemouth in the south of England with my wife Ali. But this was not always the case. My father was a military man and he traveled a lot, and we ended up in the Middle East and with my mother and my brother. And there came a point when I was very young when I was sent back to the UK to boarding school. And from that moment, my father became absent in my life and the relationship became very distant. As a result of that, I rebelled a few times in my life, but I eventually became a policeman and joined the Metropolitan Police Force in London. Back in the early 80s, my introduction was straight into the Brixton riots and then into South London and policing a very difficult area. But something on the inside of me was always looking for the truth about why I was here. Was there more to life than just owning a house, policing, dealing with criminals? So I began to search without really knowing. I didn't know who God was. I had no contact or connection with God except that through the odd wedding I'd been to or church that I'd attended when I was at school. But I bumped into friends. I bumped into one particular person who's now my wife, who introduced me to God, introduced me to Jesus. I read a book called The Father Heart of God by Floyd McClung about his time in Amsterdam and how God was a good father. And I didn't know my dad, so I threw the book out the window, thinking this is too good to be true. But he was working on my heart the whole time. One evening I went to my future wife's house where she was lodging. We were just friends at the time. And I'd been reading the Bible she'd given me, and I'd been reading this book, and I was searching for a true father. And the Spirit of God began to touch me. And I just began to cry. First time I'd cried since I was 7 years of age, and at that point I was 24, 25. Hardened policeman in South London, arresting armed robbers, dealing with really bad criminals. I excused myself and I went home to my apartment. And I picked up my Bible, and I said to God, I said, I'll only follow you if you do everything that there is in this book. No half measures. If you're half measures, I'm not bothered. I'm not interested. And the Spirit of God touched me. There was such a feeling of warmth and goodness and just love that overwhelmed my heart. And not only did I know it on the inside of me, but I felt this warmth around me. I remember falling to the floor, and I remember just crying out to God, I'll follow you, I want you. He spoke to me at that moment and said, you'll never be alone again. And from that moment, I have never been alone again. He began to heal me and restore me, and I went back to work and I told my colleagues, that I'd found God and that he was real. They threw cups at me, they just laughed at me, and they said to me, it will just last, it won't last very long, it's just a fad. Well, here I am, 38, 39 years later, and I'm pastoring a church, and we've seen the goodness of God working through our lives all the way through that. All my time in the police force and all that has happened since that time. God is very good indeed.